Hi everybody. In this video we're going to talk you through setting up the initial configuration of a TP-Link Archer A5 router. It may be a brand new router that you've purchased, it may be one that Vispa have shipped to you and not configured, or more than likely you may have put a pin in the back and reset it unknowingly, which actually erases the configuration from the router and it won't connect to the internet. Before you begin, you will need to know the PPPoE username and password that we've assigned to your account that will allow the router to connect to our network. These details are often confused with the password that's required to actually log into the router, and we'll talk more about that later. If you don't have these details to hand, you can contact support and we'll help you with them. Or if you have a mobile device or iPad and you're able to connect to the internet using a SIM card, for example, you can actually obtain these credentials from your Vispa customer portal. And just to show you how to do that, the address is account.vispa.net, or an alternative way, if you can't remember that, if you go to our website, when it loads, if you go up to the top to control panels and you click on my account, it will take you to the customer login. Typically the username to log in is your email address. If you don't know the password, follow the reset password procedure. Sign into your account. On the left hand side, go to services, services again. And here we can find the login credentials. So the service login is what we need. So in this case it's johndoe@vispa.com, and we don't actually display the password, but if you click the key we'll let you change the password. So if you don't know what it is and we haven't given you the credentials, you can change it. So in this case I'm just going to change it to what it is anyway, just to demonstrate. And now we've changed the PPPoE password. So if I close that window for 1 second, I've made a note of those details here and we're ready to go. So this is a picture of the TP-Link Archer A5, and just to quickly to show you the back of it, here's the little reset button. Everybody thinks that if I get a paper clip, and stick it in the little hole and hold it for 5 seconds, it will magically fix everything. Well, it doesn't, it just erases the config. So if I was you, don't do that. Sometimes we suggest sticking a little sticker over that hole to prevent you from doing it. So just to run through to the cabling to make sure it's cabled correctly, the blue socket is what should be connected to the Vispa wall socket, or in some cases it might just be the antenna or PoE splitter. So this is the Ethernet port where the internet comes in. The yellow ports are what you can connect your devices such as skyboxes, games consoles, etc. So to get started, the first thing you need to do is have a look on the bottom of the router. There's some information that we need. So first of all, so that we can connect to the router, we either need to plug our laptop or PC into one of those yellow ports that I've just shown you with a cable, and that will give us a connection so we can program it. The other method to do it is we can connect to the router wirelessly. If you're using a PC or a laptop, great, it's much easier. You can do it off a mobile device or an iPad. It's a little bit more tricky and fiddly, but it can be done. So there's some information that we need from here, and the first thing is the SSID of the router, and this is what we connect our device to, and then we need the wireless password. So I'm using Windows here, so if I go to, I'll just disconnect off the wireless network I'm already on, and I'm looking for TP-Link 8EA2, and it can be either the 5G or the 2G network, it doesn't really make any difference. I'll connect to the 5, enter the key, 44353308, next, and now this should establish a link between my computer and the router, which in my case is on the other side of the room. So we'll just wait for that to connect. Once that's connected, the second piece of information that we're going to need is the default access, or the web page that we can configure the TP-Link router with. So it's showing that we're connected, but there's no internet. We know that because it's not configured. So if we have a look here, it's giving us a default address of tplinkwifi.net. So fairly straightforward. Open up our web browser and we go to tplinkwifi.net, and it will load the router's internal web page, if you like, so we can program it. In some cases, there's an industry standard method of getting to this. If you don't know the tplinkwifi.net, sometimes it's tplinkmodem.net or tplinkrouter.net. You can also connect to it on an IP address, and they're usually one of two IPs, which is 192.168.1.1. Let's see if it's that one. Doesn't appear to be doing anything. So then the other IP address is 192.168.0.1, and yes, there we found the login. So the easiest way is to check the bottom of the router. It should give you a URL. If it doesn't, it's either 192.168.0.1 or 192.168.1.1 for most routers. So we'll do it the proper way, and we'll use the tplinkwifi.net. The first thing the router is asking us to do is to choose a password. Now this is a password for the administrator in your house, for example, to be able to log into the router, to change the settings, to perhaps set up kid control, certain times of the internet the kids are allowed on and whatnot. So you can either leave it as a default password, which is usually just admin in lowercase, or you can set your own. If you're not worried about parental control or anything like that, we just recommend changing it to admin and admin. So type in admin, confirm it. In fact, this particular router isn't allowing us because it's got strong authentication, so I'm going to change it to admin123. We're ready to go. Some of the routers have a QR code or apps to configure them with. You can use those if you wish, but we find using a web page is better. So let's start the process. So once we're logged into the router, there's various settings along the side, as I mentioned, parental control, wireless networks, operation modes. It's all a bit confusing. You don't need to worry about it because it's already come up with the quick setup start menu. If you do navigate around and click a few things, it doesn't matter. You can just click up on quick setup to get going. So we can run the quick setup wizard, click next. It's asking us what mode do we want to use the router in. We want to use it as a wireless router. We're not using it as a range extender or an access point onto an existing network. It's a wireless router. Click next. Now it's asking us the type of WAN connection. WAN stands for Wide Area Network, and it's the type of system that your ISP or VISPA uses at the data center to authenticate the routers. In our case, it's PPPoE. I'm not sure why TP-Link use Russian PPPoE. There must be some sort of difference, I don't know about that. But PPPoE is our standard technology for authenticating routers. So choose that, click next. Now we're prompted to add the PPPoE username and password that this router will authenticate onto the VISPA network. So we obtained those details before from the VISPA customer control panel. So John Doe, vispa.com, let me in one, confirm it, let me in one. Secondary connection we don't have, we don't need it, click next. Now it's asking us about the wireless networks to set up on the router. There's two types of networks, 2.4 GHz and 5 GHz. The reason why we have two is quite simply because one of those networks is more powerful than the other when you're close by, and the other network will propagate through walls better. So to give you an example, the 2.4 gigahertz network will have a better signal when you're upstairs in the back bedroom, but slower speeds, and the 5 gigahertz network will have faster speeds typically when you're in the same or room next to the router, but when you go upstairs it will probably be better off using the 2.4 gigahertz network. So we're going to leave them both enabled. If you want to, you can change the wireless network name. If you recall, when we started the video we connected to the name on the bottom of the router, and also we got the password off the bottom of the router. You can change it. We don't recommend changing it purely because it's written on the bottom of the router if you're ever in doubt, and if you change it at this stage it's going to kick you out and ask you to reconnect to the new network name with the new password. So our advice is just leave it as it is and click next. Same again for the 5 gigahertz network, click next. It's now asking us to confirm the details: connection type PPPoE, username, password from our control panel, or what we've sent you in an email. The wireless 2.4 network is all left as default, same as the 5 gigahertz, and we can save those settings. So it takes a few minutes. Once they're saved, the router should attempt to connect to the internet. And there we go, we have confirmation that it's successfully saved. And if we scroll down and we can look at the WAN section, and the indication to say that it's connected to the Vispa network is that online time is 23 seconds, so it's just connected to the Vispa network. And we can also see that we've got an IP assigned to the interface on the router. If you want to look at this in more detail, you can go up to the top, click status, and it brings you back to the same page. So if you're on another page, you can click status and you get the information. The WAN section is always the section that we need to look at. We've now been online for 1 minute and 1 second. So to prove that, we can open up a browser, check that we have a web page. We do. If you really want to, we know you want to, we can do a speed test. And that's about right for the line that we have here. So once it's done the download test, it will do an upload test, which should be around 10 megabytes. Slightly slower. We are on an OpenReach line, so typically slower than what we expect. The ping is 9 milliseconds and the jitter is very low. The lower those numbers, the better. So that's it, our router is successfully connected. If you do want to go back at a later stage and change the wireless network names and PIN numbers, you can do it from the left hand side. There's 2 wireless networks, so you can change the network name there. And if you go into wireless security, you can change the password there. You can also add a guest network if you have people over and you don't want to let them on your network. There's some settings in there to add another network for guests. Parental controls, you can control the time of days that your kids can connect to the Wi-Fi network and use it. And there's various other different settings in there which are a little bit more advanced. So we'll now log out from the router. And that's it, we're successfully connected back to the internet. Just one more thing to touch on. If we go back into our customer control panel and click on the dashboard, click on statistics and then internet, we should now see some information about the router that's currently connected. So we can see that the online session for this username connected at 4 minutes past 12, and it's been online for just over 3 minutes. And once the router's downloaded some data, you'll start to see some graphs of information here, and perhaps a real-time graph at the top here of the usage by that router. And of course, in the customer control panel, you can check up on your invoices, and you can set up a direct debit if you need to. So it's just a little point to touch on. The customer control panel is really handy. If you need to open a support ticket, down to tickets, create ticket, and you can ask us a question and we'll get back to you. So just a very quick overview of the customer control panel. That's it. Thank you for watching.